So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Planning Advisory Committee meeting for June 13th, 2024. Thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to start with the approval of the agenda. Could I have somebody move the approval of Councillor Elliott, seconder, Councillor Ingham? All in favor? Contrary minded? Passed. Approval of the minutes of April the 20th of 2024. Could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Mayor Donovan?
I will. I have some problems with them, but
okay, we can discuss them once. So do we have a seconder? Councillor Elliott, thank you. Comments, questions around the minutes?
I don't think the date was May 11th, 2023. But if it was, then and then it's got attending Deputy Mayor Madeira Voss. So if it that would be right. But Wendy Elliott was also Deputy Mayor, but then we had somebody, Carolyn Whitby, spoke in January 2024. So there's something wrong with
the date.
And then depending on the date.
Well, the year is also incorrect.
Yeah. Depending on the year, the Deputy Mayor is different. But we've got two Deputy Mayors in here.
Right.
Other than that, I didn't find any other problems.
So when
was the date?
I had April, not May. April 11th could have been. April 11th, I think it was, not May 11th. Of April 11th, 2024, I think is what it should have been.
And
Councillor. And
that was all.
Okay, but the substance was accurate.
Okay. I just didn't know, and then I couldn't find it in here. So
okay,
when was it?
So can we? Great, thank you. So I call for the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes with those changes, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded. Okay, thank you. Those are passed. Do we have anyone for public input today? Okay, and moving on to new business. So, Director Lake, you're going to start us off with some very good news.
Yeah, this is going to be a bit of Groundhog's Day for some of you that have already heard this introduction, but we just wanted to bring Mark Fredericks to the planning committee because he's going to be working quite closely with you, I hope. And so it's my pleasure to introduce him to you. I'm going to get Mark to maybe just speak about his background and experience, but certainly from my seat, it's been very exciting to welcome Mark and have someone on the team that lives in town and is so passionate about the town. So maybe I'll pass it to Mark to say a few things, and if anyone wants to ask some questions, I'm sure he'd be open to that too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Welcome,
thanks very
Mark.
much. Thanks for the intro, Devin, and thank you, Chair and PAC members. Thanks for the opportunity to sort of introduce myself. My name is Mark. I grew up here in Wolfville, and it's really my pleasure to join the team here at the town. Yeah, so grew up in Wolfville, still live here over on Chestnut Avenue with my family. Having grown up here, I've seen a lot of change, of course, over the years, and that's been really exciting, and we really love living in Wolfville. For parks and open space and all of the quality of life benefits that we've been able to enjoy. Yeah, I went to COGS or NSCC initially after high school, and then continued my studies at Dalhousie University, and then ended up at Kings Counties for a number of years. I worked at Kings County as a municipal planner for almost 13 years. I made the change to West Hants just in May of last year, and really enjoyed my time at both of those municipalities, and they both offered a wide variety of kind of planning issues, certainly kind of urban development, redevelopment issues, but also a lot of rural issues, including agriculture and some of those balancing of priorities. So bring a wealth of experience, I think, and certainly really enjoy living in town, and particularly have interest in parks and trails and active transportation, particular interest in housing and construction and infill development, and really pleased to join the team. Happy to join Devin and Lindsay and the broader team, and really look forward to working with all of you, and happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. It's a wonderful introduction, and I'm so happy to hear you graduated from Cogs. I have a special spot in my heart for that place. So, um, thank you and welcome. Okay, so do you have any questions for Mark? Any comments? Okay. Um, new business item, wayfinding presentation. Is that you, Lindsay? Great.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. I'm here to provide a bit of an update on the wayfinding work that has been ongoing for a number of years. Now that we have the capacity to focus on this project, I want to give you an update and also some new information that's come out on this file today. So to kind of just take it back to the beginning in terms of what wayfinding is, it is essentially spatial problem solving. So a good wayfinding system is made up of maps and signs and other visual cues that help lead someone to a destination. Beyond that, a good wayfinding system also promotes health and well-being, tourism, and economic development. So all things that are very important to the town and kind of underscore the importance of taking our time to get this right. Further, in terms of the importance of wayfinding, it improves the user experience, and that's through ease of navigation and efficiency of traffic flow. It can warn of safety hazards and also help to inform in terms of accessibility so folks can make informed decisions about where they're going and their level of comfortability. Strategically, it aligns with many goals, such as improving active transportation in town, which of course can reduce greenhouse gas emissions and support economic development by getting more people out into our town on rolling and strolling around and entering into different shops and services and supporting our local businesses. In terms of tourism, similarly, it helps to explore new destinations that folks may not have known prior to their arrival here. It helps to enhance comfortability and unify the town's image so people know where they are. They know who's responsible for the place if something were to happen. And it's also a great tool for creating a sense of place and showcasing the area's history through storytelling of local facts, history, or other environmental types of points of interest. So back in, I think it was late this winter, I was fortunate to do some online coursework with Adam Fine, who is actually the lead for wayfinding at Fathom Studio. He did a course through Planetizen, which is a planning resource website. And I got a lot of really great information from that to then sort of pile on to what we have in our wayfinding document to make sure this work still stands today. This plan is from 2014, so a decade has gone by since the creation. So it's worth taking a close look and making sure that what we have today is worth spending our money on to when we roll out the physical signs. And essentially what this document does, it does hold up quite well today, happy to say, but it provides us basically with a guiding document that we can use to roll signs out over time and remain consistent. To give you a little of a bit of a snapshot about what the current state of wayfinding is. So I've been out in the town taking a close look at signage anywhere I go. And what I've noticed through my journeys is there's a lot of inconsistency in our branding. We have some old designed signs that are still standing. Some are vandalized, some are removed seasonally due to snow and ice, and others just have incorrect information. So those are things we certainly want to correct moving forward. When we look at our inventory of signs based on that 2014 document, Luke from the rec department actually went out with a GIS tracking device and followed the wayfinding plan and indicated at each of the sites whether the sign had been installed, if there was any sign at all, and if so, what kind of condition was it in. So we have lots of information from Luke going out and doing that work for us. And through that work, we identified that there's 58 signs that are in our plan from 2014, and only 7 of those have actually made it up into our town. So we've certainly got our work cut out for us, and we now have more signs to add into our collection, and that's because new projects have come online or new areas have the need has been identified. So that includes gateway signs along the top of the ridge leading into Wolfville. Railtown washrooms need more branded signs. They need to be accessible. Of course, our active transportation network is new from 2014, and there's a need for signage at the Wolfville watershed. There's no signage there currently, so that certainly is the area of importance, as well as our trails and parks in town that are new to us. So I've just been mocking up a couple of examples to show you, to give you an idea of what to expect when this starts to roll out. So this is Olson Pond. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this site and understand that there is no indication that there's a park beyond the curb here. So having a sign there helps to indicate people to come in, and we can also add things onto the sign to get people to explore the area more broadly.
Yeah.
No, this is just a render.
Yeah.
So this, for example, just shows a map. You can actually get to the Harvest Moon Trail from this park if you cross Main Street, and that's shown on our trails map, but you may not know that if you just wandered in there. We can also include other information in terms of slope and surface material, so people can also make an informed decision if it's a place that they're comfortable entering. So that's one example of what those trailhead signs might look like. Waterfront Park has the old burgundy sign, so we certainly need to do some upgrading there, improve the level of information that's on the sign, and we also need to improve the tide clock as well. Roby Tufts Nature Center or Park, as we're trying to determine the name. There's multiple ways to get to certain locations. So I just wanted to use this map image to show you how different modes of transportation may become aware of an amenity in town. So we have the entrance from the rail trail, which points to the library, Roby Tufts Park, and the community oven. And we also have a more interpretive panel for the Roby Tufts Nature Center. This is an idea we just put together the other day to show what our alleyways might look like to make them more inviting and welcoming, and help along with some place-making initiatives that might be coming. So those are our roughly the pedestrian scale signs. In terms of street blades, we do have a number of signs that need to go up. So a lot of them are in that old black and white sign. We do have some new ones up, so we'll likely phase those in over time as well. Sure.
It's up to Lindsay if she's, do you want to comments now or afterwards? What would you prefer?
Why don't we wait to the end? Some things might be addressed. So what we also did to make sure our wayfinding plan is solid is run it by Kristen Habermel, who is the owner of Accessibility Atlantic. She is Rick Hansen certified. She's actually the person who does training for Rick Hansen certification. So she said that our plan is quite excellent, which was great. There's a few recommendations there, particularly around our trails. What type of information is important for users to know before they enter, and how we can adopt more of a roll and stroll narrative rather than a cycling and walking multi-use pathway for our active transportation network. So this is the extent of our current active transportation signage. It's not inclusive of various modes of transportation, and it's not really doing a whole lot to encourage safe use of those lanes. So moving forward, these are the recommendations coming out of the province. They're recommending the use of universally recognized pictograms or icons of bicycles, pedestrians, and arrows. And so that would be on the lanes as well as on the signs and through our intersections where an active transportation network crosses the road. We have put together this very preliminary mock-up of what that might look like. This is Highland Avenue. I just use that because it's the one example we have where the lanes are built out. So we've included the wheelchair icon as well and upgraded that shared pathway icon to adopt the roll and stroll narrative to make this network more inclusive. In terms of what to expect in 2014, that would be some destination signage. So hopefully all of our parks, gateways, and the Visitor Information Center will get some new signage. Our trails need some signage at both the trailheads and along the routes to indicate where they might lead to. Our Harvest Moon Trail needs more signs to bring people into town. The active transportation. There's a bit of work to be done as well around removing old signs and clutter and things that have just sort of been left behind, like the railroad crossing signs, for example. And we are also working with some of our partners. So we've worked with the Community Oven to get them some feedback and support with their signage for their oven, and with our Trailside reforesting project in Reservoir Park and other areas as well. This is likely a multi-year project. It shouldn't be a surprise after a decade, but some of the other projects in mind, thinking 2025 and beyond, would be the bike paths in Reservoir Park, West End trails, of course, the East End town center, and rolling out our street blades, as mentioned, over the long term. So our next steps in this process, I just actually received the quotes back today on fabrication for some of these signs. So we'll be working towards finalizing designs and ordering, and then installing some of these in summer and fall of this year. Some further considerations that we need to make are around the woodland trails with Acadia University and improving wayfinding there. We'd like to incorporate some Mi'kmaq language on the signs where appropriate, and are seeking some work with an elder that Acadia has been working with on their wayfinding, and of course, keeping our conversation around accessibility open with Kristen. And that is all I have for you.
Thank you, Lindsay. So do we have questions, comments for Lindsay? Could you put your light on, please? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. So first of all, I'll apologize because
sorry, Deputy Mayor Elliott. Sorry.
I will apologize because having a graphic designer for a husband means that I am somewhat educated, but not really. So one thing that occurs to me with the street blades is that for years they've been highly unreadable. And it's the color, yes, but it's also the size of the W symbol. It's too big. The important thing is what is the name of the street, and what you see first is the W, which doesn't make sense to me. And I was around when that W was created, and I have to say it wasn't a very inclusive process. And I won't get into what John Wooden compared it to, but it's a little rude. So that's one thing that I'll bring to the table, and readability is critical. You can say what you like about the design of the old black and white signs, but they were highly readable. At one point, the image of the town sign outside Town Hall was shown, and I have to remember back to the fact that Wolfville is partnered with Sainte Anne de Bellevue in Quebec. Sainte Anne has a sign which says that Wolfville is our partner community, but Wolfville doesn't anymore have that sign. I was hoping that council could discuss that at some point, but That's what speaks to me when we have students, young adults leaving, going to McGill and coming home and saying, why don't we have a sign like St. Anne does? So that's, to me, that's a big consideration if we're going to change that sign. Shut up.
Thank you. I think Corey and then Wendy.
So I guess my comments kind of echo the accessibility piece and the comment around, is teal the right question? So I was just curious in terms of the review by, someone in the know of accessibility, what were their recommendations for color for, I guess, new signs moving forward, if they got that far yet? Or is it just, we know teal isn't the color and now we're kind of investigating what could be black and white?
Sure. Yeah, I can respond to that. So that is a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that because we have discussed it previously, hearing some concerns around that. So what our accessibility assessment has told us is we don't actually want to go to 100% contrast, which is white with black text. We want to be somewhere more like 70-80%. So the recommendations are either we can deepen the color of the teal to meet that contrast requirement, or we can do something like navy blue or gray. Those are the accessibility recommendations. We have actually played around with deepening that teal color, and you can do so and meet the accessibility standards without really compromising. It doesn't look like a totally different color. It still fits in with the brand. It's just sort of a determination that has to be made where we land with that.
Thank you. Hey, Jonathan?
I'm going to talk about the same thing. I find that teal is hard to read. I was in a meeting yesterday and the presenter had slides that was using a similar color, and one of the people said, I just can't see, it had yellow and then that teal color, and he said, I can't see what's on your slide. So it's also dated. It's actually the color that one of the colors in our company logo, but that was done in the late 90s. So it's a dated color.
Thank you. Kelly? And then Jen.
Oh, okay. Lindsay came and spoke with Sarah and Jeremy and I yesterday, right, at the WBDC. Thank you for that. And to talk about wayfinding. And I just wanted to make the comment here that I think that the WBDC is very keen to partner with the town on some of the alleyway work that she showed. And also just when it comes to Main Street and wayfinding in and around the core, that we'd also like to closely partner just to make sure that the voice of the business community is being represented in what the signs are directing towards or away from.
So more the content of the sign.
Yeah.
As much of the design.
More of the content of the sign for the core area. Yeah.
Thank you. Jen, Councillor Ingham.
Thanks. I think we're on the same page with the accessibility, but and the alleyway was kind of interesting to me. So I'm like, what's going to go down there? Is it just more like this is what's down here, or you're thinking about putting stuff in the alley, or like murals, or what?
I love the idea of giving them names and kind of branding them. I think it can make for, a really unique experience, but there's a lot of opportunity to improve the alleyways. Like right now, they're underused spaces that really need a good look at. Like some of them are really
scary,
gross, right?
They're gross,
They're gross.
Yeah.
And I think, if you can envision like some lighting and a sign with a name and maybe even some picnic tables or bench, like it could become a walkable, usable space that invites people.
Wide, but
I don't think it needs to be wide. Kenville's done a really good job of that with murals and branding and naming. And I think, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just interesting. I have one more question though. Did you think about doing anything? We talked about this on Tuesday about how we could do if it goes through wayfinding for the e-scooters, because we did talk about that marked off area. And that might be something that we would have to look into also.
Yeah, I think that anything around that would kind of fall under the active transportation type messaging. just given that the scooters aren't necessarily like a town initiative, but we do like the issues we have heard around parking, for example. So we could do some temporary signage, at least while the scooters are out around etiquette and where parking should go and to stay off the sidewalks and that sort of thing certainly could be done.
I think Mayor Donovan and then Corey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. Corey?
One question on, I forget what the stat was, but it was in that 2014 report, maybe 7 signs were executed and we need 41. Was that need of 41, was that the need that was there in 2014, or is that just to kind of catch up to where we are currently in terms of like the current needs assessment? So one question, and the second one, in terms of the execution of those needs that we don't currently have, I guess in hindsight, what were kind of the downfalls of our approach in 2014 to the execution of the plan versus how are we going to look at that moving forward?
So there's actually 51 and that doesn't include the ones that we need now. So we haven't fully identified like each one, but there are certain areas we know. So it could be 20, 50 more, who knows? It's we're not putting a cap on how many more might be needed. So, but there certainly are many more. Just for clarification, your second question, was that around why 10 years later are we looking for
in
this?
terms of like, or are these 51 signs highlighted because we're doing a review versus more of like an annual process? I think the perspective I speak from is like a commercial landowner, where if I have like a maintenance request, I have the software that tracks, you know, the 40 outstanding requests that I have to action. I guess, is there something similar with the town, I guess, with regard to these signs, where if someone says, hey, there's graffiti on this sign, can that be logged and then actioned?
I can speak to that a bit. So I think just the honest answer is Lindsay and I are just getting into managing wayfinding. That wasn't really in our portfolio. This was something that, coming out of the restructuring, I was really excited to take on, to be honest. I think wayfinding is incredibly important in a town like Wolfville. So I've been kind of chomping at the bit to get organized. And part of what we've been doing, as you say, is, and she showed it earlier in the process, is logging our assets in the GIS. So, and we're kind of forcing our staff to use GIS whether they like it or not, so that we have corporate database. So as you say, if there's a simple piece of information and everyone has their phone and can take a picture and show that, it's been challenging to get people to buy into using the technology, to be honest, but that's where we're going. And I agree with you. It needs to be more systematic. And I kind of joke with Lindsay that she's now I forget what word I use, but I'm trying to give her ownership of this so that there is someone who's accountable mostly to the inventory, what we've done each year. And this is going to take us 3 to 5 years, I figure, to even get to where we should be. So yeah, we've learned a lot from, and I'm asking a lot of questions like, why hasn't this been done? And I think that's really your question. Yeah.
Just to comment with some of the others' comments around the color, the size of the W, a comment about the color being dated. Wayfinding and signage is really the expression of our brand. So I'm wondering, is there any discussion around the branding of the town? And I know that's like, I know from experience that's opening a real big can. But I just can't help but think that, listening to some of the counselors here who have been on this for much longer than I have been, that if there's any sense at all that we're going to be looking at our brand, then making an investment in our signs, we're going to want to lockstep that properly. Anyway, just a comment around brands.
Yes, that's a very important comment. Do we have
I think it might be a question. It's not really a staff question. We are moving forward with the brand. And so if our new CAO is working with council and wants, if that's the will of council, we would have to pause this process. From my perspective, we would really like to keep moving. Certainly Barb, our communications person, still thinks the brand is strong and relevant. And as I say, we haven't really launched it fully. So I think to pull everything out would be a lot. But as I say, staff are at the will of council. So that may be the reality with the new council is we're doing a rebrand. So we'll see. Yeah.
In terms of that, have we looked at, I know, Lindsay, you refer to the colors that, navy blue, for example, would work well. If council weren't to do a full rebrand, could there at least be an option to look at the colors of that W to kind of update them? Or, I mean, do we have to stick with those or? The colors. Yeah, I mean, just the colors might be a first step. Would that be a lot of money to do that?
I don't know exactly how much it would cost to do a full rebrand. I can't imagine it would be a small price to pay. And then we would, like Devin said, we would have to pause on all of this work because we wouldn't want to invest a new sign that would have to be torn out in a couple of months' time.
I think you would need to also consider everywhere that asset is used, like the website, all your print material. It's, it's everywhere, right? So it would be even just changing in colors would be a massive endeavor.
Yeah. So there's a difference between rebranding and colors. So when you're saying colors, that's changing the colors of all the street signs that are up currently to make them more accessible, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. So fortunately, the matter of text font color isn't such a big deal. Like I know we do have some street blades out now that are the small text teal font. So fortunately, we haven't rolled them out across town, so we could replace those with something that has a higher contrast and a larger font scale. So that's definitely something we're working with our fabricators and accessibility consultant on is what they're the experts in terms of like what size font is required on a street blade for it to meet accessibility requirements. So we would rely on that input. And then like I said, we could either deepen the color of the teal font, or we could go for a gray or something like that.
I'm thinking that might be, a pretty large cost too. I don't know how many street signs there are in town, but what do you know? I don't know.
Yeah, so there's 170 signs that currently need to be replaced, whether those are in the old sign or they're new ones that have been damaged. 140 of our signs are in the old style, so that leads me to believe there are 30 that are in the new style. So I think they're primarily in the core area. Yeah, it's not a.
Sorry, though, it says 30 that are damaged. So potentially it could be more if you're looking at ones that are not damaged, but just in the current teal, right?
I guess that's something to look at because I think we're all concerned about the accessibility piece.
Yes.
So I think looking at that, and maybe it's an opportunity if those have to be redone and new ones do, that we look, at least for the street signs, we could probably just have it one color. That would make everything easier to read. Okay. Okay, any more questions or?
Yeah. Sorry, just one more question about the street signs. Was the plan to keep the Bloom's logo, the Wolfville logo on the sign too? Or were you going to just update the color?
We haven't discussed that. This is the first, Wendy Elliott's comment is the first of that I've heard of that concern. So we can certainly we can contemplate it. Yep.
And just moving away from the color, just when you're out there looking at them, maybe thinking about, are they visible and do they need to be moved? I know depending where I am in town, sometimes you can't find them because they're behind a bush or they're too far recessed from the main road. So I think some of them maybe need to be relocated or at least
Right,
cleaned up around them, right?
right. Okay, that's a good point. Thank you. We can move on then to our next item, the first and continuing business, active transportation update. Is that Director Lake?
This is a little bit repetitive, but I think it's important that you all know exactly what we're doing. So this is just a placeholder. So we are moving forward with finalizing a tender package right now, and it's going out in the next few days. And so I've already presented this information, but I really want to just make sure that I'm constantly reminding, especially the leadership in the town and committees and different people on what's coming. So this is, I've clipped pages out here. So this is just a sample from a bigger package that shows Highland Avenue being signed, painted. We have an active transportation working group that went into some detail in reviewing all of this. And we had our design engineer actually present all of this back to them. So this has been vetted a few different times, and actually just recently through some of the accessibility work, we're looking at having that more inclusive sign. The TAC manual would say that you have a sign that has just 2 icons on it. And so this is the kind of regulatory catch-up that's happening as things like accessibility become really important. The engineering standards aren't changing quickly. So I'm talking about this sign here, shared. And yeah. So this is just a sample of Highland Avenue so people know what's coming. We're putting this out with the tender. Our crews can do some of the maintenance on this, but certainly they're not going to have the capacity to do a paint job like this. So that's mostly what Highland is. This is a big part of the tender, and I'll zoom in on the sections here, but on the far side, just for scale, this is Harborside Drive, and this is Waterfront Park. So we're working on this intersection and lack of sidewalk. This is the Harvest Moon Trail. This is Elm Avenue to the Farmers Market. This is the Farmers Market. And this is Festival Theater. And this is coming back up to Highland Avenue. So this is the biggest part of the tender package. And it's been, this has also been reviewed in great detail by a lot of different stakeholders. So this is a close-up view of the sidewalk extension coming along Front Street. So this is Front Street. There is no sidewalk here right now. And so we're building a sidewalk, a raised crossing, and basically the existing trail as it is today is being paved. So this will be a short section. This intersection will be a lot safer. I get a lot of people calling me about this intersection over my 10 years here. So I'm very happy that we're improving it. This is Elm Avenue, this right of way that you see here. Again, this is a clipped section on improving the drainage around the market. This is a really bad situation here. I was at the market a few weeks ago and there was like a small lake here. And we came in and we fixed it, but it's a temporary fix. So we're actually going to put a permanent solution in here. Sean Miles, who's a vendor at the market, is also on our working group. So he helped us sort of vet this through that organization as well. And then this is coming from Highland, moving along the parking lot at the Festival Theater, fixing the sidewalk in front of the cemetery, which is in poor condition, and pulling a crossing onto this network. So that's that's the bigger project, is that work. And then this is the Kent Avenue and Cherry Lane work that is coming. So again, this is just one page of a many-page document, but this is the general treatment, and there will be a new rapid flashing beacon crossing at Cherry Lane to get people across the road safely. So this is a similar treatment that you would have on Sterling Avenue with traffic calming. It's known as a bike boulevard. Kent Avenue is basically the road that people are using now, largely to get up and down the hill. And then this is an older photo that I took, but we have a COA funded project in the parking lot, and part of our active transportation commitments, we're also creating a better connection from Main Street to the Harvest Moon Trail. So you can see that now. It's a sort of a curved trail that we're putting all the underground in for. So we're also working on underground that's going to connect to the new building. So there's a lot of electrical and different things that are happening there now. And we're going to be moving onto the surface quite soon. We were delayed a bit on the parking lot with Nova Scotia Power and some of the coordination that we had to do there. But the visitor center on the outside is largely complete. So it's very positive. From a AT network perspective, there is a public shower that will also be in the Welcome Center, which I think will be a welcome addition for people as well. The province also added a bit of kind of wraparound support for us. They would really like this to be a success because they're spending a significant amount on this, and they have given us an additional sort of program support of $100,000. So this is more on the recreation side. So Luke is mostly working on this with his staff and Nick. But the idea here is having a fleet of bicycles that we can use for recreation programming, but also to kind of answer this little bar graph here is a question on what is your biggest deterrent to cycling and using our infrastructure in Wolfville? And the number one is I don't have a bike. So we're looking at cross-section, including accessible options. And so we're working with Banks Bikes. We have pricing. We're close to pulling the trigger on actually making an order of probably about $40,000 worth of bikes, which will be very positive. Colin's obviously very excited. That also will have a sharing program in town. He's thrilled with that. And we're going to be bringing in a storage option as part of this. This is a Halifax example, but the idea is to have a place to store the bikes as well. Part of the funding is also for bicycle racks. So we'll have some of those. This is some info that Luke provided me. And so this is some of the work that him and summer staff are working on for programming. I won't read all these to you, but there's a lot of different programming focused around active transportation that Luke and their staff are working on from a programming perspective, including working with the school. We are presenting this in more detail to our active transportation working group at the end of the month, and we know that some of those members are very keen to get involved in this programming. So Luke's looking forward to having some of them help out as well. And I think this is the last one. Yeah, sorry, didn't mean to do that. So next steps. So we're putting out this tender imminently. We're working on that support program. And then the announcement is finally happening. And this is an invite to you all. There'll be an announcement at Waterfront Park at 10 a.m. on June 28th about the Active Transportation Network. And I haven't really been officially allowed to talk about this a lot, but they've sort of allowed us to a certain extent. So now it'll be more public and we can do what we want with the information. So shortly after that, our working group will be moving into taking the next projects. So the projects that will be funded out of next year's budget deciding which ones we're going to focus on, and then we're going to be moving through the fall through a detailed design exercise. So that could be the east-west connection along Pleasant, which will be a big project, or Main Street, or some of the other projects. So we have 2 more years after this to finish the projects, but that network, as we've presented, will be complete in 2027, 2028 is the kind of the deadline. So very positive for all of us. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lake. We have Corey, Jen, and then Kelly. And welcome, Jason. Nice to see you. Corey, you're first.
One question on those bikes, which is very interesting. What is Polycorp doing again? I forget during their presentation, but are they purchasing, is it tricycles to get from their properties downtown? And I guess, is there just any collaboration with, what voids are going to exist, or are we, I guess, rolling out something similar? But I guess that was one question I had, was I did remember Polycorp talking about bringing, was it scooters or tricycles? I forget. But if you remember or no?
Trikes.
Yeah.
He did say trucks. Yeah.
Right. That thing in a basket.
So he surveyed his residents at Woodman's Grove. There was overwhelming support. It was the best support he's ever got for any idea he's had, he told me. So he's ordering a small fleet of, they're three-wheeled bicycles, which are really popular from an accessibility perspective for people that aren't as comfortable on 2 wheels. And they're just for his residents.
But are they e-bikes? No.
E-bikes, yeah.
They're east. They're okay. Because I was like, getting up that hill might be hard.
Yeah.
If that goes through.
Okay. Answering them.
Sorry. That's good. You did say $40,000 worth of bikes.
I think the number Luke gave me, don't quote me on 40, but it's around there with that he's working on. But the accessibility piece, we haven't. That's a more difficult procurement exercise. Colin isn't. He kind of was like, you're gonna probably have to go somewhere else for that. So we're working with a bike shop in Montreal, getting some pricing on sourcing a more like a proper accessible bicycle.
So do you, in that 40,000, what, like you gave that number. So what are the differences in the bikes in that realm? Like,
so there's some family focused e-bikes for people to try, which have a bunch of different attachments for carrying kids and for carrying groceries and things like that. So I'll forget some of the numbers, but it's 2 or 3 of those for people to try and for people to use for the day or to use for programming. We have a few e-bikes that our compliance staff are using, but there's 3 just kind of regular adult e-bikes. There's I think it's 8 regular sort of mountain hybrid bikes that are going to be used for recreation programming. And then there's, I want to say 5 or 6 kids, kind of neat kids bikes that Colin recommended. I think that's all of them. The accessibility piece is on its own is sort of 15 to 20,000 it's looking like. So we want to source that properly. So we're doing a bit more research on what.
I want to get a little bit of information so I can bring that back to our accessibility committee moving forward. So I'll talk to Barb on that one.
She's been fully engaged on this.
We haven't mentioned it, and we're starting up on our next plan too. So it'll just be
perfect
to know that. But I'll talk to her about that. Just the other question is, can we have a bike there when we do the announcement? Some sort of bike, or no? Is that not possible? Probably not.
You mean
the sign? It's
one
of
be
on the 28th.
You mean one of the new bikes?
Well, can we get some bike, or I don't know? Is that?
Oh, I mean, I'm gonna have
bring your bike.
I'm gonna have mine there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just have some bikes, and then in front of the sign. Is that where we're planning on?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll bring my bike. I'll bring my bike down
Yes.
if we want it. Like when you announce this, maybe we'll encourage bikes to come down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the last piece is, where is the proposed storage for this?
The old
train
car.
We were saying, did you get rid of the? Do we still have the train?
No,
we're giving it away.
right now we're looking up in the top corner of the east end. So up along the fence line at the far north
Are you
side.
talking Rotary Park here? What are you talking?
We've been calling it the East End Gateway Events Lawn.
Oh, okay. Okay.
With all the events that are happening there. So there's a space that people can easily get on the trail,
Yeah, that's
and
good. Yeah, okay.
Luke's vision for it is probably having a co-op student there for the summer, realistically next summer, running this program and also hosting with some picnic tables and things there. So yeah, to the far north of the space up against the trail is what we're thinking.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. Kelly, oh, Jason.
I missed the first part of the presentation. Did it include anything about bicycle parking?
Yeah, so part of this sort of wraparound support the province is giving us is bicycle parking, the bike sharing, and the programming. So those are the main three components. So we just got some pricing back on new storage bike racks, basically. We think once this network gets a bit more built, some of the storage lockers is something that we need to take more serious. When people have $10,000 bikes, they might want to put it in a little closable container. So we're looking at those. Once we get the VIC finished, we thought that could be a good space to host a couple of lockable storage containers. Yeah.
That would be on public property or elsewhere?
Yeah, we're talking about it. We don't have any of these yet. So regular bike racks, we can put in a lot of different places, public, private, on facilities. But these storage lockers, we are going to try at our Welcome Center initially.
Yeah. So the athletic center, I think, has one bike rack. So with an increase of usage, it would be overwhelmed.
Yeah, and I'm trying to find the right person to be on the working group from Acadia.
Mm-hmm.
It's, in my opinion, it's a certain person, but I need to claim their time to be really engaged. So that's been a gap because part of our project execution is on their property. So they need to be at the table.
Yeah.
With Aaron there, it's much
It's
easier.
true across campus, isn't it?
Yeah.
More people are using bikes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions or comments for Director Lake on this? Okay. Can we move on then to the Housing Accelerator Fund update?
Okay, so Lindsay and I are both going to talk through this. I don't want to keep telling you the same things, but we have been moving this forward. So I think it's important that the planning committee sees itself in this, and with the upcoming election, we may have a different complement of councillors, obviously, but a lot of you will carry some of that continuity. So we're really going to be looking to the planning committee to really be an oversight group, a steering committee, whatever type of language you would like to use around it. But you're going to have a very important role with some of this, and some of these changes will probably be quite challenging. I have no doubt. So we want to make sure that you're engaged, and similar to the design review committee, we're going to have other inputs for council and the planning committee as sort of the final reviewers and approvers of this work. Yeah, I'll just get into it. So we're trying to simplify what we're doing, and there's really three streams of work that some of it started, some of it will launch in September and October. So on the far left of this, with market housing, so land that is owned by private individuals is a large part of that, or a different way to think about that. And they come to us and ask for different things. How can I do this on my property? How can I do that? So the town has a humongous stick, so to speak, in our regulatory role on what can be built where and how many housing units are permitted in the town. So that work is kind of happening in the background. There's a lot of kind of reviewing, in some cases, property by property, So we have an understanding of what's on the ground today and what potential future outcomes are. And I'll get into a little bit more of that. Acadia and student housing and the unique challenges that the campus present is another part of this work. I've been participating in their revenue generation task force, which has brought up a lot of questions about their campus master plan. And they're also just kind of digesting work that was done by a consultant for them around basically the state of their student housing. That's what I'm referring to, saying the Scion report. So that's the name of a company, Scion. They're bigger in the U.S., but they do consulting services in Canada around student housing. And then on the far right, this is where the real needs are in the entire country. Housing that isn't being built completely for profit in the private market. This is different forms of different names for it: non-market, affordable, subsidized, and there's different layers of that types of housing. We have some in town with our co-ops and some of the provincial housing that's in town now, but there's a lot more that's needed in that area. And so we've started into the work on that. And yeah, so we're going to keep working on this as a summary, because as we launch this, and I'll show you some of the material we're working on, we don't want to confuse people about what's going on here. The message is fairly simple. The mandate is to create conditions to build more housing. That's the mandate across the country. That's why the Housing Accelerator was created. That's why we were given $2 million, right? So getting under the hood of all the decisions that have to come, we will roll those out very slowly to you, and you will be very involved in all of that. So some of the launch material is being developed. So you can see this pamphlet in the top right. So we've had success with actually mailing things to households, and so people can digest what's going on. We have our website and we'll fill blooms that we're building up with more information. And working on a framework for public consultation, but also orienting a new group of counselors, planning committee, to move through this work quite quickly. So the more organized we can be on the front end, the better this is going to go. And some of this, versions of this pamphlet and different things, we're going to start bringing some of this to events, just so people have it. We'll start having some of this stuff available at Town Hall. The plan review piece will be a significant amount of work, and Mark's going to add a lot of value to that. Really looking at moving Lindsay's time mostly into working on this initiative. So the sort of summary of this is we're going to be looking at rezoning properties throughout the town and looking to rationalize why we're doing that. We're looking at permitting different approval tracks, so more as of right and site plan approval, looking to incentivize certain types of housing, like affordable housing, non-market housing, co-op housing, housing on lands owned by organizations like churches. These are tools that are happening, and people are doing this across the country. So there's lots of good precedent that we are excited to bring forward. We think that secondary planning is going to be really important because, and you've seen this through the rezonings that we're doing, I don't think we can separate adding more people to neighborhoods without showing them how the public realm, parks, trails, roadways are going to be improved and what the linkage is between things. Development agreements, my criticism of them is we end up shining a spotlight on one very small part of the town, which is usually one site. And it really kind of discounts the bigger picture, which is there's a lot more than that going on. We've started looking at a parking study. We've actually started the parking study. And then there's a really important link here, and I'm so happy to have Mark on our team now because he has this experience in the county. But I mean, from my perspective, this is lost on many people, is the importance of the towns in protecting agricultural land in the county. And the reality from my seat and my experience is the private investment will go where it's easiest to put it. And it hasn't been easy to put it in any of the towns on the valley floor. That's speaking from Windsor all the way through. And so there's a bigger regional discussion, and I've had some meetings recently with the leadership at Kings County on the staff side, just talking about this issue and trying to make some linkages, because I think people do need to understand that. I have a lot of people coming into my office that want to sort of stay in the comfort zone, build what's been built through the 70s and 80s on land adjacent to the town. And so that's Greenwich, that's Grand Pré, that's prime agricultural land. And so that's still sort of where people want to go with this, is more subdivision, more of the same. And this is a great opportunity, I think, to educate people, but also give more credence to agricultural land protection, because it is a really critical issue. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't show a map. So here's a map. But I just want to plant the seed of thinking about the town and organizing the town in different ways spatially. This is a spatial exercise at the end of the day. So this is one way of looking at the town. This is something you're required to put in your municipal planning strategy. So this is just dividing the town up into really residential neighborhoods. The downtown, as we defined it in 2019 with these two areas, the university and agricultural land. So this is the sort of basic, simplest format. And this is where we need to sort of start thinking about housing and housing reform, is how are we organizing the town and how are we communicating where the different lines are in the town? So where is the downtown getting bigger or is it getting smaller? These will be some of the questions that we have to answer and actually draw lines on maps and define development rights. Very exciting for planning staff, but to bring it into the public realm and to move through a process starting in the fall is going to be probably challenging, and there'll be a lot of really positive things coming out of this, I hope. Parking review. So parking is so critical, and I talk about parking so much. So I'll try not to bore you, but it's really the critical metric when we're doing site planning. So when I'm working with developers, we end up talking about parking a lot, and a lot of projects aren't feasible because of parking requirements. There's a lot of good reason to have parking requirements. There's a lot of good reason to have no parking requirements. So this is really the debate that has to get unpacked, and some level of reform needs to come forward. So we've started to do the background work. A lot of parking studying is doing GIS work and understanding the lay of the land and doing parking counts. So we're doing parking counts through the summer on really busy times and some really basic times. You can do parking counts really easily with drones now, and putting it into software, and it does a count really quickly. We used to, I've done parking counts in my career where you're standing there with a little manual counter and you just press the buttons. So we're going to have some data. We've had meetings and discussion with the WBDC on this. We've had discussion with Acadia, just talking about the scope and trying to get this started, because it's a few months of just doing background, to be honest. We've also met and received a presentation from Hotspot Parking at Acadia. They're the paid parking provider that works at the university. It was preliminary, but we wanted to understand what they do at Acadia, how that's going at Acadia, what they have to offer. And then there'll be more of a launch of this with stakeholders, public consultation, and the outcomes would be some level of reform to the neighborhood and downtown parking requirements that actually recognizes what Acadia is doing. So Acadia is charging for parking on campus, and that is pushing parking off campus. And we have to we actually have to address that this time. Like I've worked on parking for a number of years here, and that was never really a very positive conversation or something we could break through. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to with this work, so that we're taking the same approach. Whether it's paid or not isn't really the question. It's let's take the same approach. So people see continuity as they're moving through the town, because the average person doesn't care. And I know from teaching at the university that the students don't pay for parking. They tell me that they don't, because there's free parking all around the campus. So yeah, parking, I realize very divisive, a lot of anecdotal stories, a lot of passion around it, but we are going to have to talk about it, and it's going to be really important as part of this work. So this is some of what we've done in the past. So there's been quite a bit of work. Trevor, our GIS tech, has done a ton of data collection. My building inspector, his very first job here was actually doing a parking study when he was at COGS. Mayor Donovan will probably remember that work. And we've translated this into different reports over the years and talking about things. But this, I think, is a great opportunity to enable more housing in key, especially in key areas, through reforming the parking requirements. I'm just sort of giving you a quick blast here, but bear with me. So the non-market housing working group, and maybe Lindsay, you want to speak to this, because I'm just going to read the slide.
Well, yeah, I don't have much more to say than what's up on this slide. I know we've talked about the non-market affordable housing working group before, so this initiative is starting to kick off. We've launched our call for expressions of interest on our website, and those are open till June 24th. So we've already had a number of folks reach out to us, very promising people who have applied. And so this group, of course, as you know, but I'll give a reminder, will help us to socialize what this work is all about, and help our community stay informed, and also understanding the need and priming on any potential changes people might see. So helping to build that level of comfortability as we move forward. They will help support the work to create a non-market housing strategy. And of course, that work as well will come to this committee, and it will come to council like many, many times before, of course, it gets adopted. So we will keep you apprised of the progress on that. They will help to support the process for establishing, monitoring, evaluating, managing, and disposing of land in a town land bank. So that would be sort of creating a scoring matrix to how we would dispose of land. Similarly, with a housing grant program for affordable housing development. So determining the process for how we would go about disposing of funds to support nonprofit and affordable housing providers. I think that's all.
Great. With Acadia, I did allude to a few of these things, but I just wanted to put them down for everyone's information. So there is the Scion report, which really should even be presented from someone at Acadia. From my perspective, I'm looking at it and I'm still kind of unpacking what the recommendations were. My honest opinion is I think they missed the mark a little bit. But I think certainly Marcel and Aaron and others acknowledged that, and there's more work to be done. So coming out of the Town and Gown committee, there's working groups that are forming, and one of them is around housing. And so we're looking at the creation of a student housing strategy with the ASU, with key administrators from Acadia, and obviously with town involvement. So Ian Murray's been sort of rolling that out quite effectively. So that work is going to also begin. And then what I'm very interested in for the university, to be honest, is an update to their campus master plan. That's long overdue. I've been advocating for this for a long time, but I think we're on the cusp of it actually happening this time. They're very interested in some of their frontage where there could be potential revenue generation. And so a lot of opportunity, humongous campus, a lot of land. Obviously, the whole thing isn't being opened up. The area that fronts on roads.
Maine.
Yeah. So they haven't really identified much. It's very early days. They're just beginning this work, but I look forward to working on that with them. Yeah, and there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. I think it's really exciting working with the university and where they're at right now. Some of the stuff that Lindsay and I have been doing. So we've been, and Barb's been involved in this as well. We enrolled in the School of Cities at U of T. This is a project accelerator, which has been really beneficial for us. So we've been working with practitioners across the country. So people from Vancouver and all through Ontario, and there's just oodles and oodles and oodles of housing resources, and we're looking forward to packaging them and bringing them to this group. So I brought this one in for some of the discussions that are happening around churches. There was an entire session around repurposing church properties. This is a real project in Toronto, and there's a number of other ones that we were stepped through as case studies. So yeah, there's a lot of commonality, even in places like Vancouver, around what's happening from what the role of municipalities is. Not specific project continuity. This is a very urban site, obviously, but yeah, it's exciting and very helpful to talk to other people also looking at these problems. Okay, so I'll wrap up. So these are things that we're working on currently. So we have a public hearing on the 25th and a council meeting that evening to hopefully finalize the rezonings we're working through. There's the launch materials we showed, the non-market group, the parking study and plan review, and working with Acadia. So all of this is, I think, moving forward on schedule. We're being kept in check by CMHC, checking in with us and making sure our project is moving ahead. So that accountability is very helpful. And I think we'll bring a more fulsome update either in July or in September. We'll have a really significant piece of work for you.
Thank you, Director. Like the two rezoning projects that you referred to here were the ones that we had presentations with at this committee level. Was it last month? So with Peter Pauly and the other group that his name I can't remember.
2SC. 2SC?
2SC.
S2E? S2E?
S2E. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So any questions, comments for Director Lake? Deputy Mayor Elliott? Oh, sorry.
It's okay. She can go first.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, just one of the maps, there was you were unpacking a lot of stuff there, Devin. There was a map of what is the mauve blob at the top by Skyway, but it's on Acadia property.
What? Mauve?
That's a residential property within sort of the bounds of the campus. So Acadia owns everything except that. Yeah. So that's the house that is painted red now.
Oh.
Right at the top of University. So that's a big parcel. I think it's 3 or 4 acres.
Okay.
And it's sort of, yeah,
You want to know the history of that property?
Divides the woodland trails and.
Are you going to tell us?
Yeah.
No, don't have to. I didn't know it was such a big chunk.
Yeah.
That Dr. DeWitt, you built that red house for his daughter who had tuberculosis, and there was no sanatorium in Kentville, and that's where they tried to treat her. Maybe other people as well. Dr. Marble has written the house into his history of medicine in Nova Scotia, so it is kind of a special building. And then I have one other question. Does the no farms, no food history resonate at all anymore?
It does with me, but I think it's an incredibly important issue for us all to be wrestling with in the valley, with this level of growth that we're seeing. So we'll see. That's why I'm saying I'm very much looking forward to working with Mark, because he has a deep understanding of that and was a part of those debates in the county.
Well, as a reporter covering it, it was vicious, pro and con. So I think we need to remember things like that. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Mayor Donovan?
On that similar line, Devin, when you were talking about working with the region around agricultural land, I just wanted to clarify, because it's not zoned agricultural anymore, but the Maple Ridge subdivision that's part of the East End is still being farmed and hayed anyways. But that's not what you're talking about.
No, but no. So nothing within the town other than the lands to the north. So the lands that are really governed by the marsh body. But what I get a lot of calls about is land right on the boundary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that, but I wasn't sure. And I guess I wondered if we were overtly involved with the county and this no farms. I actually had a call yesterday from somebody who asked if the town would consider annexation, and we actually do have a clause in our MPS that I guess you have to have as per the MGA in case you ever wanted to. And I just said I will talk together. But and I just wondered if that issue about no food, no farms, if we're out talking to our neighbors, if we might be extra careful for people not to say, well, inside your town, you have farmland and you're building houses on it. Just a thought that came through my head.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think that's a fair comment for people to make, but what I think this will unpack for us when we get into growth scenarios and how many units can be accommodated in a town. And I would really love to see Kentville do that type of work as well, is it really shows that for a significant amount of time, we don't need to bring all kinds of new land online. And so that's really the underpinning of this, and showing the benefits of not that we're building huge towers everywhere, but just reasonable infill and making these towns more vibrant through welcoming people and creating better conditions for building housing. So yeah, I kind of look forward to bringing that forward, because I think it's really important, and I'm not sure if it's getting pushed down by the amount of pressure we have on housing. So that is something that I worry about.
Sorry. Any other comments, questions for Director Lake? Okay, thank you. Corey? Yeah.
It's just one on the parking front. And I think you made a comment in the presentation about being potentially unified on our approach with parking with Acadia and the downtown core. And is that something, I guess, through your preliminary discussions with Acadia that they're willing to entertain, or I guess, is it really, do we do paid parking or not?
Oh, no, I don't think it's a binary decision. I think it's, we're going to bring information around, here's what this could look like if we just copied their approach. I'm not sure that's going to be a popular decision. So I think we're going to present probably a spectrum of options. And it was really enlightening talking to Hotspot, because they've gone into a lot of different towns, small places that you would never think, like Jasper. And I think there is a good case for certain areas of the town to have paid parking, but that will be subject to a political process. Working with the business community and having their support on whatever option is brought forward. But what's great about the technology that exists today is it's not just putting up parking meters. And so, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, I guess, but I've learned a lot by just talking with Hotspot recently. So we'll bring that information.
Okay, great, thank you. Any more questions on this topic for Director Lick?
Just on parking, I guess not only the technology, but I was thinking as we were talking about parking being such an issue and we're trying to get to less cars in the future in a greener world. But what about charging? Are charging stations part of your discussions at all, Devin, with WBDC and others in terms of our parking capacity in town? Because we know that charging is an issue in terms of EVs.
Yes, and it's also a part of a current station with Acadia. After we put in the level 3 charging, and it's had a number of issues, and then there's discussions that many people have brought up with me around level 2 charging, where and if we should have level 2 charging, and some of the realities around the current level 2 charging and timelines. So it's really you're getting a small boost in your vehicle versus a level 3 charger that's a little more meaningful. But yes, it's absolutely part of the discussion. It's just, what is the town's role to put in some of this, and where should we put it in is really where Alex and I are right now. There will be some charging in the new parking lot at the east end. So that's something we're working on now. That will have a couple of public chargers.
I think it's probably a council discussion too, because it's around leadership and you know, if Wolfville is seen as a place where it's it's charging friendly, there's economic benefits and tourism benefits and all those things as well. But I can recognize it's probably more of a council direction.
Thank you, Beverly. Any other comments? Okay, so that brings us to our last item of other updates and questions. I don't know if staff have anything else that they'd like to add, but I'd also like to give our committee members an opportunity to share any updates that they might have. Okay, Mayor Donovan.
Okay. Thank you. I had a bit of an aha moment last week, and so I'm going to start with putting this down to Corey, but I'll just, and can pass this around. I was at the International Town and Gown last week, and Councillor Ingham was there as well. And there were a number of, they called them mobile tours, and I went on this one. It was a look at College Park, Maryland has an enormous campus. It's the campus is and student population way bigger than the town. I think there were 45,000 students and 37,000 residents. Big area, hottest place I've been in a little while, but hot temperature. But they had built two, private sector had built two high-rise buildings. They have a partnership with their town, College Park and the university, and a third party who is a development group that is part of them. It's like there's triumvirate. And they built one of the units that was quite lovely and not cheap, and put, it's actually on two sides of a road, and they put a walkway in between, but in the walkway, they had developed the pictures. I just downloaded pictures from my phone. So meeting places for residents, grads, they talked about it as a grad student residents, and young professionals. It's not cheap. And I said, can a grad student really afford this? And they said, if they have a good grant, they can. But I mean, and it was open to anybody, but what this particular one was not cheap. You'll see something with some little square boxes. Those are study rooms. And so people from both of they were about 8 stories high, so I won't call them towers, and this walkway over the road that had all of this amenity in it. We saw another one that actually received $2 million from Amazon. So it's an Amazon community, and it was much less expensive, but it still had a lot of amenities. And the thing that I found that was my aha moment is, and these are bonused. They had the developer do this for the benefit of building higher than they normally would. And it occurred to me that usually in Canada, certainly in Nova Scotia, when we allow a developer to go higher or do something out of the norm, we bonus them and we take money for the town, because somehow the town has been impacted by height. And so we put money into artwork or something. If any of you have lived in an apartment, and I only did twice in my life, once when my first child was just an infant and another time when I was separated, it's demoralizing. You don't know your neighbors, and it's not a pleasant place to live. Particularly if you're going, if you have a life stage situation that you're going to. I know that we often in our development agreements or in our agreements, we tell the developer you have to have a community room, but we don't put any kind of parameters around that. And I know that Woodman's Road has, I don't know if they do in all their apartment buildings, but they have a community room. There is one of those buildings that has quite an active group. But so I'm just going to pass these around. My aha moment was maybe when we're thinking of bonusing, we should not only think about ourselves as residents who don't live in those buildings, but the quality of life for 300 or 400 people who live in those buildings. And so that's just let you pass that around. But I thought, yeah, when we're creating buildings for 300 and 400 people who could be young parents, could be a widow, could be a widower, could be somebody who's just moved here, doesn't know anybody, the quality of life is quite different than it is for those of us who have backyards and front porches and are very comfortable in our homes. But it's just a different way of thinking of what we might expect, particularly as we go into more of that kind of housing structure. So just a thought.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments or updates? Corey?
I guess just one question in terms of the updates, 292 and 234, is there maybe just me being out of the loop, but just curious in terms of where we stand?
I don't have anything on 234. I can get back to you on that one. So that was another, if you all remember, it was, I think, a 10 unit on Main Street, just to the east. And 292, we've been working with them even just yesterday because we're installing servicing. So we're putting in electrical, putting in duct banks, doing different things. They're using our contractor. So they have an arrangement with them to do that. So there's coordination happening there. And I'm just waiting on a more sort of fulsome update on what is coming next. But I had provided one to council, and I could provide that same one. But I have my building official working closely with him. Alex, before he went on paternity leave, was working on a number of issues. So yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Everybody's question. It's a common question.
And I'll just say for the record, that was my question. That was my question as well, is what's
Okay.
happening with 292, because I thought we were to see substantive work by June 4th, I believe is what we were told.
I think it was June 4th. That's
June
right.
4th, yeah. So yeah, Devin, if you do have some lines on what's happening with 292, that you could provide us, because we're talking to neighbors too and people. So
Yeah,
if
I'm gonna work on a bit more of a fulsome update for everyone. I mean, I need to get that from them. But also keep in mind, we're completely rebuilding a parking lot right around it. So there's a lot of coordination that's happening back and forth there. And they did have a drill rig in there already. And we went through a whole engineering exercise with our building officials on securing and adding new piles there. So that was really critical to move the new design forward.
But that's not too visible behind the old fence that's falling down and stuff. I mean, I certainly I agree with, there's lots of activity with the parking lot, but it's just the building itself. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, next meeting date, I think would be, if we follow our regular schedule, be July the 11th from 4 to 6. We are meeting in July. I think it's August that we don't meet, right?
Yeah, we're gonna try.
Okay, so July 11th, that's the second Thursday in July, from 4 to 6 here in Chambers. Okay, thank you. And could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you, Corey. I don't think we need a seconder, do we, to adjourn? All in favor? Contrary minded? Okay, thank you. It is 5:30.
Good job.